Mhm.
Welcome to Golden Black Live, joined by Tom Dienhart as we kick off our September 15th edition.
Mhm.
And we will be talking Purdue, Syracuse, and more. Special guest today, Tom Dienhart, first and foremost. And we have also Mark Herman will join us in segment 2, talk the All-American Purdue quarterback, former Purdue quarterback, was on the sidelines last week at Blacksburg. We'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, Corey Palm. Corey writing a book on the 100 greatest games in Ross-Ade Stadium history. Of course, it's the 100th season of Ross-Ade Stadium as well. Triple X, want to thank them as a sponsor on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Tom and I didn't get there this week, but we're going to get there before long. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Don't know what high school game Trent is working, but I do know he'll be on the sidelines. At least I assume he's going to be on the sidelines tomorrow when the Boilermakers take on Syracuse, 7:30 p.m. kick on NBC. So, Tom, again, another, huge win last week for Purdue. Hard to minimize that. No need to minimize that. It's really big for Ryan Walters and company. You had to deal with the 6 hours of hanging out or 5.5 hours of doing that. You've done a lot of football over your life. Never seen anything quite like that in terms of delay, I assume.
Yeah, nothing like that. Just crazy. Some people said it was the longest college football game in history, so I'm not going to argue with them.
Yeah.
5 hours and 27 minutes was the delay, and thankfully for Purdue, their patience was rewarded by getting a win at least, right? And move forward 1-1. Boy, Alan, all types of opportunity this weekend, and it's a game that's really hard to get your hands around. I think Syracuse is favored, and how much do we know about Syracuse? I just don't know. And then there's the Boilermakers, who I think are more battle tested. I just find it hard to think they're going to get beat at home. By Syracuse, but it's going to be an electric atmosphere, I think, for that evening kickoff. And like you said, hopefully the weather's accommodating too.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a possibility, outside chance of prediction. They were predicting on WLFI this morning. Jacob talked about maybe a stray shower, maybe a little lightning, but not till the end of the evening. And it's only a 10 to 20% chance. But last week, that prediction went from decent to really bad in a hurry. So hopefully that's not going to be the case. All right. Yes, I'm with you on the whole notion that it's hard to imagine that even though Syracuse 2.5-point favorite, just that atmosphere will be, and the fact that you win that game, it just brings that up another level, I think, as the Boilermakers come through the Tiller Tunnel tomorrow night at a little bit before 7:30.
Yeah, you're right. And we've talked about how critical this September is, right?
Yeah.
And back in August, this was a game I circled that Purdue was going to win. No pressure, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think last year's result at Syracuse has any factor. History doesn't matter. It's always fun for us to talk about, but we broached the subject with some players and obviously staffers who weren't here last year about it. They're obviously aware of it. They'd love to get payback, but they know that really has no bearing on what's going to happen on Saturday night. And, for Purdue, Alan, I think Ryan Walters hit the nail on the head this week. Maybe the biggest thing he learned was he's got a resilient team that can deal with adversity. And coming off a tough home loss, there could have been finger pointing, but there wasn't. Then you got to go on the road to a tough environment. You build a 17-0 lead. You blow it. You have a 5.5-hour weather delay, and you still find a way to stay fresh enough and are ready to play football when the game resumes. So again, that checks a lot of boxes and tells, I think, Ryan Walters a lot about the team that he's got. And to that point too, Alan, discipline wasn't always a hallmark of some of the recent Purdue teams. This is a Boilermaker team that doesn't typically, or hasn't at least, incurred a lot of penalties early on, right? And is one of only 2 Big Ten teams that's yet to turn the ball over. So that has not been lost on me either moving forward here. And they're going to be fired up coming in that tunnel Saturday night. We know that.
Yeah, you're right. It's a sure measure, at least early on, the fact that you haven't turned the ball over. You
Yeah.
haven't. They did get sacked last week. They didn't have any sacks in week one. Hudson Card was, but that's a really good sign for a first year program. I think that Purdue's been able to keep their stuff together. And really did deal. Yes, Virginia Tech came back last week with a vengeance, got back in the game and had a chance. But really, Purdue, I thought one of the most impressive things we haven't seen a lot. You've watched a lot of Purdue football over the years, that you don't see a lot of game-winning drives when you run the football down, downhill, so to speak. And Devin Mockabee, Tyrone Tracy Jr., especially in that last drive, and Hudson Card taking it the final distance. That's a good, a good sign, I think, moving forward.
I still think Devin Mockabee is the straw that stirs the drink on that offense. People may disagree with me, but if he's rolling Allen, and that's no big revelation, right? And anytime you have an offense when you can run the football, you're going to be a more effective offense. And Maccabee's a special back. I guess that's my point. And you only have a handful of guys who are real difference makers, and he's one of them for Purdue. And go ahead and ride the guy. He's a special back. I think he's proven that now over the course of about 1 full year of playing a lot of football. Catch the ball. He dies hard, Alan. It's like every run is the last run of his life.
Yeah.
And he's just remarkable. I just marvel at the kid because, again, physically he's not really impressive, but he's tough, man, and he's just got that knack. I can't explain it. It's the kind of stuff you can't coach. He was just born with that ability to run the football and find seams and creases and that drive too. So he's special. I think Hudson Card's a cut above Allen. I think the line played better this last week.
Yeah.
Big key, I think, is going to be getting number 4 more involved, Deion Burks. Just 1 catch, 4 targets. I understand Virginia Tech was doing things to take him away. They didn't want him to go deep, but I still think you got to find ways to get him the ball. I think back to Jeff Brom. How many targets would David Bell and Charlie Jones get every game? They went to their guy. They wore those guys out. You got to wear out Deion Burks too. Pitch him the ball, jet sweeps, short passes, whatever. Get him the ball because he's the most special player on that offense. He's got to catch more than 1 pass if Purdue's going to be good teams.
Yeah, 1 pass and 4 targets last week. He certainly showed that against a couple long receptions against Fresno State, and as a guy that we always talk about teams that have to be able to game plan, for folks. We talked about also Purdue's defense and Kyron Jenkins and Nick Scourton, 2 guys that are going to wreak havoc. Garrett Schrader, Syracuse's quarterback, we know he ran for 83 yards or whatever it was in last year's game. It didn't throw the ball all that well, but got the big pass at the end that did the Boilermakers in. But you got to think those 2 guys are going to have those 2 bookend defenders for Purdue on the defensive line need to have a big game Saturday night if Purdue's going to get the job done.
Yeah, they were a menace, Alan.
Yeah.
Purdue, I think, had 9 TFLs and 3 sacks. Scorton had about 3.5 TFLs, a couple of sacks.
Yeah.
Jenkins has been one of the best pass rushers, not just in the Big Ten, but in the nation when you look at the metrics. So they've lived up to their hype. There's no doubt about that. That whole front, Alan, has been as good as I think most of us thought it was going to be. It's a big group inside. Brent Pry, the Virginia Tech coach, talked about that after the game. Said they're hard to move. Malik Langham, Isaiah Nichols, Cole Brevard. They can bring in guys like Jeffrey Emba behind him and Joseph Anderson and Mo Amanade. Just big guys that sit and refuse to be moved and can get a push too. And then you got those outside linebackers who get upfield. So 11 rushing yards last week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you sent out the tweet, the fewest rushing yards Purdue's ever allowed on the road in history. The key, Alan's the back end, right? Those cornerbacks have held up really well. I wrote something this week about Marquise Wilson and Markevius Brown. What a godsend those 2 guys have been. They played a lot of football. They played pretty well. They may get some relief this week, Alan. I think there's a chance the Stanford transfer Salim Turner Muhammad may make his Purdue debut. He wears jersey number 2. Let's see if he gets on the field for this defense, because they could use another veteran to help slot in and take some snaps at cornerback to relieve Wilson and Brown a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's and to get the kind of defense that Ryan Walters and Kevin Cade want to have. You got the sense against Virginia Tech that they had a little bit more of that. Certainly the 11 rushing yards. Yes, yeah. Virginia Tech threw the ball, but they're going to throw the ball. Teams are going to throw the ball. That happens in college football. It's almost like pitching a shutout if you get them under 200 yards passing. I mean, it's just hard to do anymore in today's game. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think those guys have been really interesting. The bookend corners have made a big difference. Certainly Dylan Thieneman has. Yeah, been a big step in the right direction for Purdue, and that's what's going to make it special. All right, you have a lot on your plate with Purdue. And you are obviously not looking past tomorrow night, but you come back the following Friday. We'll be doing next week's show on game day. Crazy as that sounds, with Wisconsin. And then, of course, Illinois for homecoming on September 30th. All of a sudden, like you said, you don't count. We can, as folks that follow the team, can start counting victories or looking ahead. Purdue's best to just play at a possession at a time. I got the sense they kind of did that last week, kind of just took it as, even with the delay and all that, kind of took it as it came. That's going to serve them well, even though you can look at this rest of this month and say, boy, you could be a game up, be a game ahead at 4-1 than you ever thought you'd be if things go to pass.
Yeah, I thought 3-2 may be the right goal for this month, but why not 4-1 after Wisconsin lost at Washington State? You know, I guess the jury's still out on the Badgers. So, yeah, you're right. You hate to get ahead of yourself, but we can do that as the media. So 3-2, I thought they'd be in great shape. If they're 4-1, Alan, wow. You're playing with a little bit of house money, I think, just needing 2 wins over the last 2 months to get bowl eligibility, which I thought was sort of the crest or maybe the ceiling of this team, to go 6-6, maybe 7-5. Maybe I underestimated this team. We'll see. We'll find out a lot more if they can really take care of business Saturday night against the Syracuse team. You know, Purdue, they're peer programs probably.
Yeah.
Agree. And, you know, Purdue's on its home field, Alan. And you got to find ways to win these games, I think, if you want to be a bowl quality team. Bowl quality teams win these kind of games against peer programs on their home field. Purdue's healthy, Alan, relatively healthy. Now on offense, I know Gus Hartwig was listed on the depth chart this week. I'm still not so sure we'll see him play. I still think I'll be a little surprised if number 53 is out there. So keep that on your radar. Paul Paferi, of course, is still going to be out, the backup tight end. We saw Garrett Miller last week catch 1 pass, his first catch since the Music City Bowl against Tennessee. I still think his snaps are going to be limited. So probably get more of Max Clare, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, it'd been great.
So, otherwise, Purdue can't really quibble with it. I think it's health. I think they're in pretty good shape coming into this game.
Yeah, going to be a fun environment. Who would have thought 20 years ago it's all about night football and tailgating all day, and that is the way of the world, and that's what makes it such a big event in Ross-Ade Stadium, and it will be sold out crowd as Purdue takes on Syracuse on Saturday night, tomorrow night at 7:30. And that should be a lot of fun. Tom, thanks so much. You've had a busy week of putting all this together. We want to take a 2-minute break, and you'll hear from Triple X and State Farm agent Trent Johnson, but also Mark Herman will join us in segment 2, Corey Palm in segment 3. We'll have a lot of fun with that. We always like to talk about Purdue history. That's fun to do. And Mark Herman made Purdue history, I should say, as one of the great quarterbacks in all time at this school, and now playing a big role in the athletic department. And you know, one of his great tight ends, Dave Young, is supposed to be back, and that'll be a neat reunion if he makes it back to town this weekend. That'll be kind of fun to see Dave. So,
real quick on that note, I talked to Tim Stratton yesterday, and I got a on the site. So speaking of great tight ends, number 89, of course, he's excited to be back out. He's told me he's getting to town on Saturday with his wife. He's got 2 daughters, so as you can imagine, he's pretty fired up about coming back to West Lafayette.
Yeah, be tight end, two of the best tight ends to play at
Yeah.
Purdue, probably the two best to
But
play
I
at
think
Purdue.
Dustin Keller's probably up there too.
Yeah, that's true. We don't want to shortchange that. Yeah, I can't always see the forest for the trees. All right, we are going to take our break, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes on Golden Black Live.